Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody. What's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley. Look, excuse me. My voice is going away. I apologize. It is what it is, but this is the best I can do today. So you got to bear with me and hang in there with me as far as the voice. But thank you guys, as always, for showing up like you have. We're back talking and continuing our series on the Big 12 on the best games of the week. Week 12, it's a little shaky within the Big 12 this week. Not a whole lot of marquee games, and we're going to discuss why. Because sometimes I think people get into it and they're like, man, this seems like they've linked up with each other as far as these conferences are concerned, and this would be one of those weeks. So before we get started, excuse me, on anything, remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in the comments section as always, and repeatedly hit that notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content comes out, because the season is right around the corner, ladies and gentlemen, right around the corner, and we're going to have a lot of stuff here for you. So getting back into this. So week 12, look, Big 12 doesn't have a lot. Obviously, they have games. I'm not saying that, but they don't have a full slate. Some teams are on a bye. But it seems that these conferences from time to time, as much as they portray that they don't get along, and maybe they actually don't, and I kind of think there's some of that, they don't necessarily get along. I think they're like, okay, we're going to have a big weekend this week. And they try to match it up with each other based on weeks. Okay, we're going to have a big week 2. We're going to have a big week 7. We're going to have a big week 11. Well, in this week, in week 12, Big 12 doesn't have a big week. The SEC does. And like I said, maybe they've timed it up. Maybe it just happened to be that way. Or maybe the schedule makers of each conference, they get together and are like, week 12 is our week. And the SEC has it this week. You start looking around and you look at the games. And I'm not saying that every SEC team is great. So please, anybody with a brain understands that. But this is just a better week. You got Oklahoma at Alabama. You've got Texas at Georgia. Florida at Ole Miss. South Carolina at Texas A&M. Hey, look, I'm not here telling you that all those teams can win the national championship. I'm not here telling you that all those teams can make the college football playoff or should make the college football playoff. But when you just look at that slate of games, it's just better than what the Big 12 has. It's just better. West Virginia at Arizona State. TCU at BYU is actually a decent game and probably is on par with, what did I say? South Carolina at A&M. It's definitely on par with that, in my opinion. Arizona at Cincinnati, Kansas State at Oklahoma State, UCF at Texas Tech. And I know what you're saying. Well, you didn't go down the whole slate of SEC games. No, I didn't. But I did go down the whole slate of Big 12 games, except for one, Utah and Baylor. And that is, for me, obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but for me, it's the game of the week within the Big 12. I've said it repeatedly, and I'm going to keep saying it. I think that Utah is going to have a bounce back year. I've also said this. I don't think enough people are giving Baylor credit. I don't think there's enough people talking about how good Baylor is going to be this year. I think Baylor is going to be phenomenal. I really do. I think they're going to be right there in the mix of getting to Arlington and an outside chance of getting a college football playoff berth because they're going to be in the mix to get to Arlington. But there's several teams in the Big 12 that have that opportunity. I just don't think enough people are talking about Baylor. I just don't. I did see something crazy yesterday. I was looking online. Online people do a lot of things for clicks. Utah 7.5 as far as their win total. Somebody said under by at least 2 games. I'm like, what? Under Utah 7.5. And you're saying they're going under by at least 2? Come on, man. And I get it. And sometimes you got to say stuff for sensational value. Totally understand. But, man, give me a break. Utah's not going under by no damn 2 games at 7.5. If anything, 2 over at 7.5. So, but I did see that. But I like Utah. I really do. I think they're going to have a bounce back year because I think they're going to get the quarterback right. I think they are going to get quarterback right. And if you can get quarterback right in college football, basically in football in general, that's half the battle. That is literally half the battle. Now, you have to have other pieces, but Utah has other pieces. Utah, in my opinion, has, I don't know, a top 5 offensive line in the country. If you ask Utah fans, they'll tell you it's the best offensive line in the country. I'm not going to say that. Utah has the best. And to me, again, I'm biased, but I think Utah has the best player in the country. But that's just me. That's just me. And it's not a quarterback. It's not, a defensive end, offensive tackle. I think he's the best player literally in the country. Spencer Fano. I just think he is. I think he's I think he's in the mix of being the top pick in the National Football League. I know there's a lot of quarterbacks coming out, and I know that there's a lot of guys that, a lot of teams that may need a quarterback, and it's not always traditional to take a tackle as the number 1 pick. But if there's a team out there that already has a young quarterback and you find yourself at the top of the draft, I would take him. That's just my opinion. I think he's the best player in the Big 12. I think he's the best player in the country. And they have him on the line. They also have another guy on their offensive line. Just happens to be a little bit younger. Caleb, and I think it's Lomu is how you pronounce it. If it's not, I apologize. So I love what Utah has. I think they've got 2 guys. And if he comes out, I think he'll be a top 30 pick. So you got 2 guys on your offensive line that are going to be top 30 picks. If they can fix it, they'll be fine. You saw what Baylor did at the end of last year. Sawyer Robertson is just played outstanding football. All reports, he's even better this year. They're going to be able to run the football. Lord have mercy, are they going to be able to run the football with Bryson Washington? And if that defense can get fixed and be a defense that finishes middle of the pack, little higher, look out. That's all I'll say. Look out. But to me, this is the game of the week. This is the game of the week in Week 12. Utah traveling to Waco to take on the Baylor Bears. Not a ton of action this week in the Big 12, but that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes you're not going to have marquee matchups up and down every single week. This happens to be one of those. But the Big 12, alive and well, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you guys. Thank you, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.